of the biggest things with Red Bull back in those years was not associating the brand and the image with any other company. So like one example, and it's different now, they've evolved, but at that point, if they had a Red Bull athlete, there were no other sponsors from head to toe. If you look at other athletes where it was like, oh, they've got logo, you look at a NASCAR race car, it was only Red Bull. They sponsored it from head to toe, front to back on car, because that was their brand. It was like, we're good enough, we're big enough, and we're rich enough not to need to co-sponsor or associate ourselves with any other brand.
Yo, so we are official. We were just, excuse us for being a couple minutes late. We were talking about the NBA playoffs. We both share a similar sentiment in the fact that we're both from Portland, and neither one of us are a huge Blazer fan. So don't hate us. Maybe I should say that at the end of the show, right? Maybe I shouldn't have said that right now. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. And I mean, just to say too, I do have Blazer license plates, so I do support the team. But that being said, it's been a rough road for the Blazers here, like since I've been on this planet, to be honest with you.
You're right.
But, it's like, come on.
It's like even the Blazers fans, like, they admit that it's hard being a fan. Like it's the same thing. Like, every year they think it's going to be, the year, right? And I gotta give it to them. They're incredibly optimistic. They are super optimistic, and every year is their year. And yet, I'm just like, I will pass the baton of blame to my father, because although I was born in Portland, he's originally from Texas, not Texas. What am I doing? Louisiana, excuse me. He's originally from Louisiana. And the entire time, like when I was growing up, no one local was he a fan of. So when they were actually like really good, like Rip City days, he wasn't a fan, and he passed that on to me. And so for me, I've always been a fan of players, and I've never been like a bandwagon. So even when they got like Sheed, and we talked about, like, I like people that have like demonstrative, like, attitudes in your face. Like, I appreciate that. I just couldn't come back because I'm like, no, I'm not going to be a bandwagon. And now this year, like, I appreciate them. Like, I respect Dame. I respect the players, et cetera, et cetera. And it was funny when they thought that they were going to beat the Lakers. And then, what I will say is, what I appreciate the most and what is the most hilarious is when the Blazers won game one, my Facebook and Instagram feeds, you'd have thought that they just won the championship. Literally, you thought it was 77 again. Like, they won game one of round one, and I thought they won a championship. And then games 2 through 5, crickets.
Oh yeah, you're totally right. I mean, it is frustrating. I think my heart was truly broken when Brandon Roy came to an end, because that was such a fun couple years with the Trailblazers, and Brandon Roy brought a whole new level of excitement that was new to the game. And but yeah, now it's tough. It's a different world. The game is completely different. I mean, just with how they're calling fouls and all that. But we could go Sports Center all day long. But yeah, the playoffs. I'm grateful to have sports and be able to at least detach from the stuff that we're working on every day with our careers and our businesses. So it's great to just have games to watch and something else outside of work to look forward to.
Exactly. Well, man, let me do a proper introduction because, like I said, we can just jump in, like I said, do our sports take all day. But, I just like going into it. But, of course, you guys, Brand Talk Live, host Brandon Gaston. I am with, I put this on LinkedIn, Addison Nett, and we met actually because of our mutual appreciation for marketing and branding through a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, Jesse Dow. We were actually at the Nike campus, which is crazy because I didn't even know they don't even do those tours. But we got a tour, and that's how we met. But I was literally saying on LinkedIn, I'm like, this is a guy who we're going to talk about branding from an industry that you don't expect to hear about branding and marketing. And you're the host, literally, of the Modern Loan Officer, one of the co-hosts. And you actually, obviously, you market and brand yourself well. So I'm loving to get your perspective. But, man, thanks for coming on.
Oh, it's absolutely a pleasure. And it's great to see what you're doing out there. And, definitely a follower and a watcher / listener. So it's fantastic. And, before we kind of get into it, I just want to say, man, out here. Yesterday was a huge day with the fires locally, especially in Salem and all over the West Coast. I mean, guys, this stretches from Canada down to the Baja. So I just want to say, Brandon and I were talking about before, our hearts go out. We're so grateful to be safe, but everyone out there that's having a struggle, not only with that, but this year, we're thinking about you. And hopefully, our time today can bring, whether you watch it later or now, hopefully it's something, to give you some motivation and inspiration, because everybody needs a little bit of that this year, right?
Man, we all, like you said, I can't echo that any better than what you just put it, man. That sentiment is just like, I was literally like, it's like, man, like we literally said, like, how low can you go? Like, how
Mhm.
much more? You know what I mean? And like, but again, yeah, hopefully this does bring some excitement, some joy, some fun. I like to have some laughs. I was literally watching a podcast last night. Maybe this is just a podcast. We're just gonna have some laughs and talk about and bullshit about branding and business
Right.
and whatever. But yeah, everyone needs a hug right now. And I think I would tell anyone that is gonna listen, like, reach out to someone. You know what I mean? Like, just see how they're doing. Say hi, like, acknowledge someone.
Mhm.
I think everyone needs it right now. So definitely do that for sure.
Yeah, a smile goes a long ways. Oh, a
Man,
smile
even
goes a
even
long.
even more so, even more
Yeah.
so in times like these, which actually is the kind of the perfect segue in one of the things I want to talk about. Like I said, you being a mortgage,
Mhm.
being a mortgage broker,
Yeah, yeah.
being a mortgage broker in the Northwest. And I always say,
Mm.
like, I'm from here, you're from here, you can say it. We're like kind of like late adopters when it comes to any types of trends, whether we're
Mm.
talking fashion, business, whatever. Anything outside of sportswear, we're late adopters on for the most part, right?
Uh,
We got that down. But just like a smile goes a long way in times like these, I always say, like, in industries or areas where it's uncommon practice, people that actually are in the front lines to go out and do things first, they really
mm,
have the opportunity to reaping the rewards. How is that for you, being someone, again, in an industry that's unheard of, even globally, right?
right.
Domestically, you being ahead of the curve in how you brand and market yourself. What
Mm.
gave you that idea? And then just talk about that.
Yeah, I would say, kind of, to answer that question, it really kind of backs up to before I was even in the mortgage industry. So I'd
Gotcha.
always been very attracted to branding and marketing. When I was a kid, I would make little commercials when I was like 7 or 8 years old of like different products and perform them in the living room for my family. And I always had this brain of like how to make an advertisement.
There you
Uh,
go.
and then my first job, actually, I grew up a competitive golfer here in the
Gotcha.
Pacific Northwest, and I dreamt, of playing collegiately. I
Okay.
was a
Okay.
part of the Tiger Woods era where I got to see Tiger Woods play at the U.S. Junior Am here in Oregon.
Wow.
And that was just, I was playing baseball, basketball, football, and I was always on the worst team ever, right? But I was a good player, but we never won. And I absolutely hated losing. I was ultra competitive as a kid.
There you
And I
go.
saw Tiger Woods and I was introduced to that solo sport, right? So it's like, oh, I got into golfing, really, really thought I was going to play collegiately. It didn't go that way for a series of events, but throughout that sport and my involvement in school, I built a relationship with Red Bull energy drink. And
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah, Red Bull energy drink offered me, I was supposed to be a collegiate brand ambassador while at the University of Oregon, and that all fell apart. And um, there's a great guy, Adam Navarro, who was my boss at the time, and he gave me a
Yeah.
shot. He's like, hey, you could essentially be kind of like an intern on our
Hmm.
marketing team. Everyone's seen those like Mini Coopers with the big can on it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I was the youngest, the 18 years old, thrown into a total brand, ultimate brand party company.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to a really cool perspective of branding. I mean, Red Bull just does an amazing job of, they have a whole set of constitutional rules on how the brand is, how you talk about it,
Yeah.
how you associate yourself in the product with other products. And I
Gotcha.
think, right there from a get-go, I was put into a position, environmentally speaking, to start thinking that way.
Yeah.
And that partnered with the sport of golf, which is known as kind of maybe more of a higher income level activity most
more
of the time.
affluent.
And I grew up as a caddy. You know, I was hustling, carrying bags, and I was around all these rich people, and those two things really buttoned together. And moving into that, I actually managed restaurants for 4.5 years. So I have this golf, you know, rich man sport background.
Yeah.
And then I worked for Red Bull Energy Drink, was an amazing experience. And then I managed restaurants, which is a service focused career for almost half a decade. So my brain has always been that a composite of all those three factors. So the big jump for me, Brandon, was like, okay, how can I apply these experiences to an industry that is lacking all of those things? Because
seriously lacking.
It was path of least resistance for me. It's like, oh, well, it kind of came down to a short few things, and I chose the mortgage industry, and that's essentially how it all started.
No. You gave us a great background. How long have you been doing mortgage? How long have you been? I know you've like said awards, and I see the posts, and you know, how long have you actually been in the game?
Yeah, so I'm on 5 years now in mortgage. So I started off, I literally took a marketing assistant role 5 years ago and sat at the front desk of an office and worked my way up to having a team right now. Modern loan officer, huge team, great producers. So yeah, it's been a great 5 years, and I'm extremely fortunate because the real estate industry itself has just been on a fantastic run.
Yeah, no, you missed the 08, 09 downturn, which is interesting because you talk about like your experiences from Red Bull to restaurants to playing golf and how that composite of that created the foundation that you have now. I always look back, like I started my first business in like 2008, 2009. So here I am like in my 20s, right? Naive, no business acumen, thinking I'm going to be a millionaire in like 6 months. No, what happens? The market crashes, homes devalue goes down, businesses are closing. But within that created like that muscle. Talk about Red Bull as far as from the branding side. You said they have all these kind of like guidelines and these rules associated with it. One of the biggest things when I talk to clients and just businesses in general with branding and marketing is the consistency of all the touch points. And I would imagine you working at Red Bull, you have a strong foundation, a strong understanding that everything needs to be consistent. Can you go into that a little bit more? Because like I said, I know a lot of people that'll be like, okay, how they are on one platform versus how they dress versus how they do things, you know, is all disconnected. And when I started myself, even wardrobe branding, that was actually why I started. Like before I was doing this, I was doing wardrobe branding, image consulting, and I started in real estate. And the reason why I started in real estate for two reasons. One, it was one of the few industries in the Northwest where I can make a direct connection between how they dress to how much money they make, and they can see an instant return on investment. And secondly, the conversation I was having with them was similar to the conversation that realtors were having with their homeowners, right? And so even if they didn't see it themselves, when I had that conversation, it was like a light bulb went off. But it was literally because their wardrobe wasn't congruent with what they were selling. You know, you see that $1 million real estate agent, and we can talk about this all in whatever they were in, right? So talk about the consistency aspect from the foundation you got from Red Bull.
Yeah, I would say, and going back just to give a little bit, this was like 2006 to 8 was the years I was with Red Bull. So this was before there were about 50 energy drinks, right? Red Bull was the pioneer, and Monster and Rock. At that point almost. They did, and Monster and Rockstar were starting to make a little bit of a move and imprint in the market. But that being said, to answer your questions, one of the biggest things with Red Bull back in those years was not associating the brand and the image with any other company. So like one example, and it's different now, they've evolved, but at that point, if they had a Red Bull athlete, there were no other sponsors from head to toe. If you look at other athletes where it was like, oh, they've got logo, you look at a NASCAR race car, it was only Red Bull. They sponsored it from head to toe front to back on car because that was their brand. It was like, we're good enough, we're big enough, and we're rich enough not to need to co-sponsor or associate ourselves with any other brand. So I'd say that's the first thing. And it was like that too, just being very entry level on the marketing team.
Yeah.
But with all the clothing, none of it was like a Nike shirt. It was literally the tags on the employee clothes were Red Bull. Like they paid the company, whoever made them, to have Red Bull tags.
Yeah.
So you weren't promoting any other brand. So that was a really interesting thing. And then if you're looking at a lot of the cross promotion we did was not only from the domestic day-to-day consumer, but the on-premise, they called it, nightclubs, bars, all that stuff. So Top Shelf was it. You could only order a Red Bull and vodka with 2 approved vodkas, Kettle One and Grey Goose. That was it.
That was it. So the brand alignment was
what it costed.
Yeah. No, which is amazing because again, I go to the brand alignment, right? For me, as I realized, I knew I was gonna do other stuff as I was gaining my influence, if you will. I was never wanted to be an influencer. I understood I had influence, but I never took money as a so-called influencer. It was because for me, brand alignment was everything. Like I was not going to align myself with an entity, with a company for $50 at the time, $100 at the time, whatever the dollar amount would may be, because it wasn't in alignment with where I was going. And I was very specific on, look, I'm going to do in the Northwest, Polo Noir, you know what I mean, Derby, you know what I mean, these types of events that made sense not only from a networking perspective, but also from a branding perspective, because when they saw me associated with the Street of Dreams, they're like, oh shit, he's at $1 million homes and plus, like that must be his brand. And so that's amazing. What's interesting about what you just said though, you talked about Red Bull when you started. Mm-hmm. They had head to toe clothing, even though they're not considered a clothing company, right? And they and they marketed head to toe with everything. Now they've kind of, I won't say diluted, but just like most brands, you see them sponsoring or co-sponsoring other events. What's unique about that is that's what it seems like it's coming back to. Right? Because what I'm seeing from other brands specifically, whether it's like a Gucci that's now doing a restaurant, right? They want to control every aspect of the lifestyle of the brand. You know what I mean? They aren't just doing, literally with something the other day where like a yacht company, there's no more yacht shows. They're going to do internal, events because they want to build that community aspect. What is your opinion on that? Controlling the relationship A to Z and expanding your footprint as a company? Or co-sponsoring, if you will, and co-collaborating? What do you see, and what do you think the advantages and disadvantages are from either way?
Yeah, I would say it's going to depend on the industry and the market. To give a contrasting comparison is golf. Like, 10, 20 years ago, you'd see professional golfers, male and female. It was head to toe. I mean, Nike is a great example, and they actually had to adapt to the game because the clubs and the equipment, they couldn't make any money off them. So they're out of the game. It's apparel and footwear. So now even Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, some of the top players are a hybrid sponsor now. Like who would have thought that Tiger Woods would be playing Bridgestone golf ball, or Rory McIlroy would be playing TaylorMade golf balls, which is owned by Adidas, but he's head to toe. So I think it's all going to be down to the industry and really adapting. And I know that's an overused word, but I do believe what you're saying. In most industries, it might come back to that singular brand and image and the importance rather than this graffiti billboard.
Yeah, no, and like I said, it's just because I'm seeing that come back, like I said, literally to that, where they're like, yo, I want to own the entire process, right? A, I want to cut out the middleman. B, because they know there's an overarching, the brand value increases if it is a head to toe, relationship as opposed to being segmented. But you played golf. You already said you were super competitive. I played sports. I'm super competitive. But I want to flip it. How does that impact you as a business person, and as a marketer in a good way? Because a lot of times people look at, being competitive as like, a drawback. And I'm like, no. Like, I want everyone to be successful. But I still like, I'm the person that if if I'm at the gym or if I'm running on a treadmill next to someone, like we're racing, whether you know it or not, we're racing, like literally, and I will die until you get off. Right. So, but I feel that same way with business. How has playing sports and your competitive nature propelled you in business?
Yeah. And man, similar stuff to you. I would say I've definitely evolved in how I manage my competitiveness.
Yeah.
And I'm a true believer that everything's a double-edged sword. So every strength you have also comes with a weakness.
Absolutely.
And the more you can be aware of that and center yourself, and I'm not saying I'm an expert at centering. I'm definitely unbalanced for sure. But I would say at different stages, when I first got into mortgage, I used that competition, that competitiveness in my heart to anchor into a goal and something that I wanted to do. And the big motivation was, I had just met my wife. We started dating, and I really needed to personally get my act together.
Gotcha.
And it's like, hey, this is, the first person in my life that I had that feeling that I need to be the best version of myself, and I got to get my stuff together. So I anchored into that. And then I saw other people who, were making a shit ton of money. And it's like, I have more relevant skills than these individuals that are further ahead of me. I don't care that I didn't go to college. I don't care that, you might be 20 years older than me. I never subscribed to the conforming steps. A lot of people do. Okay, I'm not going to take no for an answer. If that's the answer you're giving me, that's temporary. There's just Scotch tape.
It's not right now. It's not right now.
No, it's not right now. So that was it's setting little goals like that. Was like, what makes that person? Why is that person having a better life than me?
Yeah.
And that was the competition. It's not that like, it'd show up at the water cooler and be like, oh, I'll get all in their face, like. But I always secretly subscribe to a few personal commitments. One would be, and I can't remember where I heard this, it's another sports thing. I wanted to be first to the line every single day. So when I first got into the mortgage industry, I got up, I was at the office 7 a.m. for 700 days straight, just 7 a.m. First one on the field and the last one off.
Yeah.
So I got really, really used to that. And it just became very normal. So the amount of time that I put into, and then complemented by skill sets of technology, marketing, typing, texting, these were things that my industry did not know. I remember saying one of my first weeks was like, you guys got to start texting your clients. And I'm looking at a room full of 55-year-old pleated khaki mortgage advisors. And they're like, texting, that's not how we do things. And I'm like, y'all better shape up. And I'm over here, MacBook, I'm texting on an iPad, reaching out to the databases, building touch. Like, this is how it's done, guys. Get used to it. Now you talk to any mortgage advisor, I would say 70 to 90% of their correspondence with clients is all done through text.
Yeah.
And that was 4.5 years ago. I mean, come on.
Which is crazy. I mean, the thing is, like, there's genius in naivete, right? And there's genius of just being new. Like, sometimes people they're just so old and they're just so caught in their ways that they resist change. And someone like you that's new in the game, you know what I mean? You're like, look, why? And you're asking questions like, this doesn't even make sense. And of course, now they adapt. And that's the issue a lot when people are such slow adopters or adapt to, new ways. It's like, then they're trying to play catch up. And it's impossible to play catch up. And one of the things you said when you said you were first there and first to leave, I was always like, somebody has to be first. That was always my mentality. Like, somebody has to win. There has to be a winner. There has to be someone that's successful. Why someone else as opposed to myself? And even now, to echo your point of like, just working, like I was literally talking about Labor Day, like, I always like, look, when right now, if I get a DM and someone's like, oh, Brandon, oh my goodness, you inspire me or whatever, or I see you working out with the shit going on, I'm like, oh, let me double up. Like, let me lean in even more. Let me work more because I love it. But that's that competitive nature in me, which obviously is only impacting me, right? It has no impact on on their opportunity of success, but it definitely, is propelling me. So
Just
you've
look
done,
at that competition piece to it, because
yeah,
man, those first few years, Brandon, it was all about how much money I could make. I wanted
gotcha.
to make, I wanted to make this much. I want to make 100 grand. I want to make $250,000. I want to make this. And you hit all those benchmarks. Then you start looking at your life and you're like, wow, I'm not measuring winning by my salary anymore,
Gotcha.
because you've done it.
Yeah,
You know the algorithm it takes to make however much money you want to, or scale a business.
yeah,
One of the biggest realizations for me is the people that are really winning in my industry are the ones that are making enough money to withstand and be on the trajectory and the lifestyle that they want, but they have
yeah,
time.
yeah.
And that's the first time in my life at the age of 32, I believe I am. Man, time, you can't buy a day from me
No,
anymore, because it's like when your wife or your family and it looks at you and all you've done is just work 150 hours in a week or whatever, and you're always walking away from a social gathering or a birthday or whatever to take your phone call, you are strapped to your phone in your business. And
yeah,
that's been the biggest change for me. So now it's like I've got responsibilities financially and with my business, but also another competition are the more seasoned mortgage advisors who have been doing this for decades, have an established book of business, and they're out. I'm seeing them on their boats and I'm seeing them play golf 4 times a week. And I'm
yeah,
like, that's not fair. So
exactly.
it's a whole nother set of competition. So that's kind of the journey in building anything, and my current, thought process on competition.
No, you definitely grow and the goals, the goals change, you know what I mean? And there's like these 3 or 4 year windows or 5 year windows. And it's like almost like a season, right? You go through that
Right.
season and then the first thing is, okay, I just want to be successful. I want to prove it. I can do it. I want to make money. Then it's like, and then it goes to something else as you grow and your life changes. Talk about how maybe within that COVID, has it slowed you down? You know what I mean? We were talking about before we came on, like
Yeah.
one of the things, one of the aspects of it is it's required everyone to slow down a little bit,
Mm,
and almost for me gain perspective of what is the most important. Like I spent a lot of time here in Arizona since it started,
mm,
and it was just like it's just been fun just being around family. Like literally to be amongst family all the time, and I've always been someone super appreciative. Don't get me wrong, but it's like even more so. You're like so aware that like shit, this is really what matters. To your point, you can't
mm.
buy a day. You know what I mean? Like just to have, just literally, it sounds crazy. Just to sit at the couch and just chill on Labor Day with the fam. Have whatever. Like that is like the best aspect, and it
Mm,
actually makes me want to work harder when I'm working. So
yeah.
I'm slowing down, but when I'm working, I'm working. But when I'm off, I'm off. Have you seen the same thing for you?
Yeah, I would say it's a unique industry. So, man, interest rates are historically low.
I've
So you,
heard.
you have a thriving refinancing market. And then the Vancouver and Portland market here in the Pacific Northwest is just skyrocketing as well. So it's a busy year.
Yeah.
We were really forced to adapt, working everyone, right? But working remotely, primarily the back end of my system can, operationally speaking, as 6 to 9 full-time players that we're used to working with those people shoulder to shoulder. And
Hmm.
doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but it really does. There's a huge difference between a Zoom call or a text or an email and face to face when we're talking about getting
Oh,
people into homes.
yeah.
So I would say, March all the way up to even now, it's been a lot of hours, a lot more hours, a lot more communicating on the small things rather than talking about the big things. So that's been one of the biggest changes. Fortunately, though, working with our mutual friend Jesse Dow, Jackson Wilkie, we adapted the Zoom approach with our clients last year, pre-COVID.
Gotcha.
So
You guys are ahead of the curve.
I had clocked in over 200 client calls by Christmas last year already through Zoom.
Yeah.
So I was used to that. And my biggest move was utilizing Zoom to an efficiency standpoint. So
Okay.
I was already setting that up face-to-face clients, which is huge. And some of this will back into my service level standards and branding standards for MLO and as a mortgage advisor, but really utilizing video recording myself for correspondence with clients. So
Gotcha.
going that extra mile and recording, 15-minute video of me and screen sharing and be like, hey, here's a spreadsheet. Who would have thought that? Be sending a cloud link to a client to watch me explain a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But those are efficiency models and adaptions that MLO and myself have made that have really allowed us to even have time to do things like this. Because you talk to any mortgage broker, I'm too busy to even answer my phone right now, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, it's busy, but there's ways to be more efficient if you're utilizing and adapting.
Talk about that, man. That's such a great nugget. And I've talked about also, obviously, as we become disconnected, there's ways that we can utilize technology to become more connected, right? And we mentioned reaching out. You also talked about, obviously, it seems like you understand the systems of your business very well, which the average individual doesn't. So can you kind of explain and talk about how you've married the two, the ability to understand systems, the ability to take advantage of the technology to where everyone else is kind of like figuring it out. You've really kind of seemed like you have a game plan. It's like, okay, these are some of the efficiencies I can use that gives you the opportunity to be on, to bless me with this conversation.
Right. No, I mean, it goes back to that double-edged sword, not only with ourselves and our personalities, strengths and weaknesses. So say like for us at MLO, our strength is transparency. We're going to be completely transparent with the mortgage process rather than smoke and mirrors. And this is, salesy crap no one wants to listen to. We're going to lead with transparency and education, right? And the
providing value.
Providing value. What is your value proposition? And then what is your service approach level? So if you're wanting to scale your business, often a lot of people, including myself, run into a time issue because it takes time to execute all those things.
Absolutely.
One of the biggest things I learned being shoulder to shoulder at a different company, a very, very well-respected mortgage advisor nationally, like makes boatloads of money, does huge amount of production. This particular individual told me, my goal is to not spend more than 20 minutes with my client ever. And it really hit me. It was like, I never want to be that person. You're not adding any value. What's the difference between someone just filling something out online and just letting the process flow?
Yeah.
You need to do a lot of different things. Anyways, to get back, if you're committing to service level, growth, transparency, and education, those takes a lot of time. The only neutralizer to prevent stalling on the growth is the system and the efficiency model. And it never ends. I think a lot of people think it's just like ordering a part for an engine of a car. Like, here's my efficiency nut and bolt. No, that thing's always stripping, always
constant iterations.
Always. I mean, the problems I have today in my system were my goals to be at just 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, this is my plan. And then you get there and you're like, oh, my plan sucks. So I watched a really good, amazing movie, the Ford versus Ferrari. And man, just how they work on the car. And I just relate to that because it's just laps. And it's like, you got to take your pit stop. You got to change and adjust. So the systems piece of it is the only thing that unanchors me from just being sunk in a low producing business model.
Man, that's so true. It makes me think of what's that movie I saw recently? How America Was Built, right? I don't know if it talks about all the forefathers from Ford to the Vanderbilts, et cetera, et cetera. And as you know, that was the industrial revolution that time. And it was like they were just trying to do any little thing to increase the efficiency that much. But it is a constant combination of the art and the science, right? That iteration, and then how do I make it better? How do I make it prettier? How do I put makeup on it? And then how do I iterate a little bit more? So lead me into you creating your show, right? Again, because I led with people in mortgage don't have shows, let alone interesting shows, let alone conversational, educational shows. What was so funny for me when I look at real estate when I came into it. I'm like, why don't you guys be doing these cool, like I come from the $1 Million Listing, you know what I mean, TV show.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
like, why
yeah.
aren't you guys doing like branded events and
Mhm.
capturing it and marketing it and building your brand and doing all these other things? And I get that that's TV, but there's
Mm.
aspects of that you can implement that no one's doing it. And because no one's doing it, it goes that much further. Take me through your process of us saying like, okay, I'm going to do a show. I'm going to go out on my own and actually really brand myself even more so than what I've been doing. What made you decide to do it? And then tell me about the experiences and what you've gained since you've done it.
Yeah, no, great question. And it starts back a couple years ago. I was working with a particular company, and my original idea was, hey, there's so many fantastic people in this company, from employees to mortgage advisors, that have so many skills that people want to learn from. So we could make a podcast, some sort of show, and it would be an internal show for other, we call them producers. That's a
Yeah,
mortgage, it's a salesperson. It's a
exactly.
fancy
Yeah.
way to avoid saying sales team. So that was my original idea, and it never caught wind. I couldn't get support from it from my leadership at the time, and I pressed on it hard and hard, and I wanted it more. And then, Jesse and Jackson, our friends, they were working on video. I was getting into video. I started doing just like whatever I could to get a splash, like whether funny. I tried everything, right? And then Jesse and Jackson really anchored into the YouTube approach and the living in Portland, which attracts a ton of relocating business and real estate. And I have an amazing opportunity to see them grow that channel and be a part of it from an arm's length distance.
Exactly.
So the original plan kind of always was to learn from them and see what worked for them and what didn't. And that came with a lot of business and Zoom calls. But the show piece of it, I always said, okay, we want to create our own channel and brand. And I wanted it to be educational and transparent, because I just feel like financing in general, there's so many people that have a job out there just because the average person doesn't understand the content, right?
Yeah.
And that's where people earn their money. It's just like, oh, get them to trust me on a call. They're going to do their loan with me, and pop, bam, boom, and a commission check. And it's like, no, it should be more than that. I've always thought that. And I've always been that person that looks at stuff like, why can't it be transparent? And in our industry, a lot of marketing and branding has been shied away from because companies pull the compliance card. And
that's the first thing you hear. That's literally, and I have other mortgage friends. I'm like, no, and again, I'm not in that game, so I don't know the compliance. I'm like, but, and to your point, I'm also like, you can brand yourself. Like, you don't have to just talk about that. Even when he was shutting me down with the compliance aspect, I'm like, look, you can still brand yourself. But then again, I don't understand why someone would not want to do it. I'm like, everyone, I just felt like anyone can brand themselves in any industry. There has to be a way around it. And obviously you figured that way out.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's more to talk about with that. To kind of complete the show part of it, it naturally evolved, like seeing Jesse and Jackson grow their YouTube channel and meeting Joshua Billups, who's an amazing videographer and producer, and he runs all of our stuff here. My thought was, hey, I want to grow a team of mortgage advisors that serve the same perspective of service level, transparency, and doing what's right. Sounds corny, but it is a winning approach that isn't seen in finance normally, right?
Exactly.
So we brought this group together, and
you guys are an outlier. Definitely.
And we're pushing through. And I think, our content is very niche. We're never going to be the next huge, viral content, but we consistently stack nickel, dimes, and quarters to create bills, meaning on our modern loan officer, which we stream that out on 10 different channels, 10 different Facebook, just Facebook. We haven't even grown bigger than that. But if we're getting anywhere from 200 to 400 views per channel, 10xing, hot damn. That's a lot of eyes, right?
That's a lot of eyeballs, a lot of exposure, a lot of top of mind. right?
And I
And you're
think,
building that library of content that I tell people, like, when they're ready to make a decision,
mhm,
they've seen you 25 times.
they've seen you a lot and they appreciate the content. I think one of the smartest moves I made a couple years ago, um, I made a decision because I had gotten a few years into the business. I just got tired of being a slave to real estate agents and working with people that I didn't want to. Right?
Yeah.
Like I would do anything for business. You got it. I'll be out there. I'll do this. I'll attend this. I'm running around doing whatever. And that's how you build a business. But then a realization back, I'm more happy, more successful and growing if I'm around people that I at least share some common ground on perspective.
Exactly.
So I focused on that for a short half year. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm surrounded by Jesse, Jackson, other YouTube players, agents with similar service level expectations and growth goals. And then all of a sudden, I see my client list becoming more like me.
Exactly.
Oh, now
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sell someone who doesn't care about education, doesn't care about doing the right thing or planning out their financial stability on the longevity. I'm dealing with someone, oh, yeah, I listen to your podcast on Apple or Spotify. I love your perspective. I love your mindset on the service that you provide. And all of a sudden, I'm kind of at a party that was for me. Right? Rather than trying to fit in to something I wasn't invited to at all.
Man, I tell people that all the time. I'm like, look, and I get it because it's scary, right? It's scary, especially when you're building your book of business. Like, say, you want to be everything to everybody, you want to do everything, and not realizing that, you mentioned it earlier, like you can be niche. It doesn't matter now with the internet. You can be as specific as you want to be. There's gonna be a tribe that's gonna be attracted to you because they're similar, like-minded. But when you go to that, when you figure out, like, and you surround yourself with those people and those individuals, like, there's nothing better to working with and selling the products that people appreciate, that they already have bought into you. You have similar ideals, similar thought processes, and it just makes everything that much easier. Like, and then you're like, why in the hell did I wait? Why didn't I just jump in and just follow, be as authentic, not saying you were inauthentic, but really lean into who I am from the get.
Right.
Because then, like I said, you really start attracting those people that really are just like you. Like, literally, that's what happens.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, when I first started in mortgage, being a rookie and trying to earn my way through, I was wearing, full suits and trying to whatever, tie every day, perfect thing. I mean, now, dude, I got a blazer on, but I'm either wearing shorts or jeans under and Jordans. And that's like every day. And now I have a man bun. And it's like, that's me. I'm focused on being me. And when you're not trying to be something that you're not, you're going to attract people that you enjoy being around more, and they're going to appreciate who you are. And it's going to be a way better experience for everyone.
Well, yeah, no, and they're going to be attracted to your authentic self. Then you don't have to try to do and be anything else than your authentic self, because that's what they're attracted to. To give people some tangible, takeaways from that. So you started your show. Obviously, like I said, you're on 10 different platforms just on Facebook. Talk to people about what are some of the things that's made it successful, whether it's being like consistency, whether it's being like, how do you scale it? What are some of the ROI benefits you're seeing, as far as, obviously, I would imagine when people see you that many times, you don't even have to, I was telling people before when I was doing wardrobe branding, I'm like, look, I'm going to get you in the door. All you now need to not do is mess it up. Like, you're going to get opportunities that you wouldn't have. When people don't realize, when you have a show or content that's consistent, they've already bought into who you are. You just don't need to mess it up, because literally they've already been like, okay, that's the guy I want to work with. I see how they are. I see how they dress. I see their personality. Absolutely, I want to go to them whenever I'm ready to buy. And it's almost like, it sounds funny, but you almost go from doing sales to almost taking orders, because they've already been sold on you from the get. So, but talk about, just like I said, some benefits and tangible takeaways you've got since you started your show.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the obvious answer, which you would get from anyone really, is like, oh, business is like, I love it when business is just blowing up, and like, we are so hot right now. Like, the phone is, I mean, we've gotten some great business, some great leads off of the podcast, and we recently closed a $1.2 million transaction in California off of Apple podcast. The guy never even saw us on video. Didn't even, he like, you know, just like, wowza, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think one of the biggest things for me, to be quite off script, and this is an organic realization, is the show has forced me to be a better version of myself from week to week.
Got you. Okay.
To force myself to go from, hey, we're going to do the show and wing it, to, hey, now we've got, here's our subject line. Here are the points. All 4 of us or 5 of us plus guests are going to go over those points an hour before. We want to get better every single time.
Yeah.
And that takes me getting better at my job. And the communication part and explaining subjects has made me better at my job with
Absolutely.
the show. And in an environment where we do so much through video now, I'm very fortunate. This is the routes that we've all chosen as the team and gone. But the branding is huge, primarily because we're not only direct to consumer, which we provide that opportunity to connect with us on our Facebook live streams, YouTube streams, and then Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts, right? So we have multiple funnels for direct to consumer, but particularly we're able to really connect and brand ourselves to our number one referral partners, which are local real estate agents, which everybody in our industry is connected on social media, primarily Facebook, and private groups. So that allows us to really have the modern day Starbucks meeting times 100 every single Wednesday, and touch and provide not only a touch and a branding, a value add, which is content that agents can share within their networks that they're marketing to.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's so important, especially now. I literally gave a presentation yesterday with branding, and I'm like, look, since COVID, even before COVID, right? There's so much saturation in the marketplace that unless you're consistent and you're producing enough volume of content, people are going to forget about you. And the great thing about what you just said is you're able to provide a value to not only to your consumers, but also to your referral partners and people that you collaborate with on an ongoing basis that makes their job easier. And by you making their job easier, they, of course, feel indebted to you. I know one of the best things I have from doing these conversations myself, I tell people, like, look, I'm happy that to send one to you, my consumer is people that watch it, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur or whatever. Like, but the other thing is, I get a front row seat to all these people that are great in their industry. Right. So now I'm literally having a conversation with someone that is good at what they do. I'm gaining insights just as soon as my audience is getting insights. And that's one of the greatest takeaways, besides the fact that I just love this. And it's a way for me to stay connected. Man, I could talk to you all day, but I have this thing called branded behavior. And so I want to get through this. I know your time is valuable. And it's just a quick, like, questions, kind of give people insight, either or. And some you can expand upon, and some you can just give the answer. So the first thing is, I have a friend, Rosie, that she went to school with you. She was like, oh, I know. She literally DM'd me. I went to school with Addison. He was super cool. So shout her out. Yeah, but she played basketball. I don't know if you remember, she said she went to West London. She played basketball. She ended up playing pro basketball.
Oh, man. Yeah, we had a great girls basketball team, and they've continued to be fantastic. Go Lions, huge supporter.
Exactly. So the first question is, are you more of a city or suburbs person?
City, please. City.
So if you weren't out here in the Northwest, you're from, Westland area, where would you live?
If I weren't to live in Portland?
If you weren't going to live in the Northwest period, or I guess you can say Seattle, that would be your next choice. But what other place would you live outside of the Northwest?
Either the Caribbean or somewhere in Mexico. If I didn't have to run, the mortgage business. Yeah. I love Mexico, man. I don't know what it is, but I love the people there. And I love that. I just love it. My body feels right there.
Yo, that could be one of those things, like you said, with the more tenured mortgage people, where they said they're working 4 days a week, or they're golfing 4 days a week. You can just be in Mexico.
That's what's up.
Just come back as you need. Since I know you wear blazers all the time. What is your favorite brand of blazers that you wear?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, it's a fit thing for me. So for me, I like things that I can pull off the rack. And
Yeah.
fortunately, I'm 6 feet tall, 160 pounds. So I'm almost like a mannequin.
There you
From
go. You're what, like a 38 or 36?
I'm a 38 regular,
Yep,
preferably slim fit, depending on the brand. So like
definitely.
Calvin Klein X,
Okay.
the X whatever, that
Yeah.
38 regular fits me really, really well. The only downside is on a 3-piece. The vest is like 2 inches too short from how tall my torso is. So that's
Gotcha.
unfortunate. But yeah, that Calvin Klein X. But like, I'll wear anything. It's all about the fit for me, man. Like, I love a pull off and a good fit. Whether it's like you're gonna buy something at like H&M or like Calvin Klein. Sometimes Kenneth Cole has some reasonable stuff, but I'm a budget guy, man. I get, you know. I
Well, the
get
thing is, though, when you're blessed, when you are literally a mannequin size, you're good because
it's
that's the
the
thing. Like, it's fit, fabric, and then so fit and fabric and then color essentially. But when you can wear shit off the rack, it doesn't matter because I tell people all the time when I
yeah,
first started, one of our clients that I worked with in merchant services was Mario's, and it's
yeah,
like how much money you spend does matter, but fit is first and foremost. Like I'd rather you spend less money on clothes and
right.
tailor it if necessary, or in your case, just find a brand that fits off the rack and then you're golden for sure,
And
for sure.
I've been really into this year, kind of like adapting this resort wear type
Yeah,
of vibe. I've worn a lot of like linen blazers with
there you
like,
go.
a Ralph Lauren slim fit button down. And then since I'm usually waist up, I like to go cozy with some fun like swim trunks or shorts
Yeah.
and then throw in some Jordans or whatever. So I like that. Like when last time we went to Mexico last year, there were minimum standards to go to the restaurants at the resort.
Okay.
It was like, hey, closed-toed shoes,
Yeah.
a blazer, a collared shirt. And I kind of adapted that. I was like, well, I got that, but I'm wearing my floral swim trunks, and
Yeah.
these are Air Force Ones, but
They're close.
I
So
meet all the codes, so they let me in.
the funny thing is, well, two things. If you wear a blazer, I say this all the time, man or woman in the Northwest, you're dressed up. You can go anywhere in a blazer. In the Northwest, you are elevated without question. The second thing was resort wear is kind of like take away the weather aspect of the Northwest. Like that's kind of like a vibe you can do all year round
Mm,
because we aren't super dressed up. It's more than just casual. You know what I mean? It is elevated. You can be fun with prints. I've seen you do prints with like shorts and stuff like that.
yeah.
Like that really is like if the weather is decent, like a 9-month window in the Northwest, like that style. So I'm right there with you.
And not intimidating to people. I know we haven't been face to face this year, but like
Yeah.
the suit thing, at least in the Pacific Northwest, in our business market, there's only a certain level of certain industries that is acceptable. But on a standard consumer level, the average person doesn't want to be always approached from head to toe. It makes them feel uncomfortable in our city.
Exactly.
So understanding where you are, totally different in LA than
Mhm.
Portland, right?
Oh man, I had to adapt that myself. I had to adapt. You know what I mean? There's obviously we all have complex versions of ourselves. So I can dress casual. My casual might be different than someone else. But I was
Yeah.
like, I would actually one of the ways I would actually tone down me dressing up is by color. Because it's hard. Like when you see someone in a black suit and a white shirt, like that's like super sharp, that's super rigid.
Mhm.
But if you see someone in a bright blue blazer and like slacks, it's like, oh, with the shirt open or whatever, that's
Yeah.
still cool. That's still like cool and casual. You know what I mean? Like I'm still
Yeah.
elevated, kind of like going back to resort wear, but I'm
Yeah.
not intimidating. So they can like, okay, I can breathe easy. I can relax around this guy. Dream vacation, where would you go? I'm thinking of someplace in Mexico, but where would it be?
Yeah, I've been to Mexico quite often. My wife really wants to go to Europe.
Okay.
For me, I just like don't. I'm not super attracted to go like sightseeing and walking around all day like that. Like to me, I want to lay down all day and stare at
Okay.
something beautiful, not
Yeah.
have to like pack up and like take a tour bus anywhere. Um, but I would really like to go to Australia. My wife
Okay.
spent 2 years abroad there,
There you go.
traveling, and she just has the most amazing story. So I would love to do that. Would like to do it for a minimum of 2 weeks because it's a hike out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, you have to stay. Last question. If you could have any guest on your guys' show, who would it be?
Mm. I mean, right now, I don't know why LeBron James keeps coming up in my head, but like for some reason, I don't know. I'm not a huge Laker fan. I'm rooting for them in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, make sure you better say that. Make sure you better give an asterisk. Let people know in Portland that hey.
Well, if Portland is playing, I have to root for Portland naturally.
There you go.
This guy is just so like his accomplishments, his age, his body size, his resilience to not being injured all the time, his leadership, the way he makes everybody so much better around him, offensively and defensively. I mean, he keeps coming to mind. I think it would be really cool to hear how he's grown his team at, Miami, Cleveland, LA, everywhere. Has nothing to do with mortgages, obviously, but just right now that's in my head. I think it would be a really cool guest.
Well, and let's be honest, man. The thing is, I said to someone the other day, like everything's the same. Like the same attributes and characteristics that he has that's been able to be effective across all types of different environments, all types of different personalities, and now become the leader he is today. That's applicable to anyone in any industry at any time. You know what I mean? Like, so even if you just only spoke basketball, you would leave with so many nuggets that would be applicable to your job, and it would just be fun as hell to have him. So that's a great guest.
No doubt. And I mean, even to throw a little head up to Kobe, I mean, I didn't know. I knew he was obviously impactful and did a lot, but especially on Mamba Day with, learning how many lives and organizations that he supported and the women's basketball movement, just so cool. I just, the more and more I get into this, Brandon, like, I would love to learn from people on how to really make a bigger impact. And I don't just say that to say that, but this is one of these years where we got to think that way, right?
No. I mean, for me, everything is interesting you say that because, like, for me, I'm so big on purpose, right? And as I get older, it's more about purpose and legacy. Like, and you kind of alluded to earlier, like, it's like cool to make money and whatever, and that's a byproduct of those things. But really, it's like, how many people can I impact in a positive way? You know what I mean? Help and support, whatever it is, whether it's a couple people or more. But I'm really, really, really into that. And I had a fun experience when I launched this podcast. A couple of the people that were helping me do it at the time, they were really big fans of Kobe, like everyone else. And I didn't even realize, I was a fan. I didn't realize how much of impact he had either. But I looked at it from even like the business perspective, and I didn't realize how much he had going on behind the scenes. Like he was literally gonna be as big, if not bigger, of a business person, business tycoon, if you will, philanthropist, than he was as a basketball player. And if you think of someone in a lifetime that could succeed that much to the best of their ability, like in two different like industries or genres, that is amazing. That is definitely someone that it's been crazy. So man, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I can talk to you forever. Let the people know though, plug away. Let them know where to find you, all the different your show, everything else you have going on. What's next? Give them the 411 on what's up with you.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And all of our shows are streamed live Wednesdays at 3:00 on Facebook.com/MLO podcast. So you can look me up, Addison Nett, Addison Nett, see the whole squad on there on Wednesday. So all of our podcasts, if you're a listener, you're looking at those, the Apple, the Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you grab those podcasts, we're on there. MLO, which stands for The Modern Loan Officer. So if you're looking to refinance, buy, sell a home, it is an amazing place to start. Tons. We're at episode 35, I believe, all live stream and then also converted into podcasts. This is free education that is transparent. There's no agenda. We offer free, no obligation consults. There's a VIP line, 503 VIP 9038. Call, text. It simultaneously hits the entire MLO team with any mortgage financing questions. So subscribe, like, comment, any of that stuff. We appreciate it, but really we're here to educate and help people. So it's a resource and know you've got that tool at your disposal.
Man, that is so amazing. I literally was, like I said, I was on a presentation yesterday and I said, literally, the funny thing is to sell more, sell less.
Mhm.
And it sounds, crazy. I'm not just saying to say, like, literally, when you come from a place of value and you just want to help, like I
Mhm.
said, like, my thing is a legacy. I know, yeah, there's a byproduct of being successful, but literally, like, if you just want to help, if that all your focus is, you'll be good and you'll be successful, more successful than you could any other way. So, man, I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was fun. I definitely now I'm going to have to look at how to update my system so I can have the whole overlay. We talked about that before we
Yeah.
came on with StreamYard, but people know Zoom. Zoom is like, that's like the thing. But I definitely love what you guys are
Right.
doing, and I support you. So yeah, man, just stay in contact, stay healthy, stay safe in Portland, and we'll be
Yeah.
talking soon.
You do the same. Thank you so much for having me on and letting us talk. I really enjoyed it, Brandon. Thank you.
All right, man, you have a good day.
Yeah, you too now.